Welcome to another episode of Biz Money Talks with Tracey Bissett. I am your host, a financial coach for young adults as well as entrepreneurs, and it's really my privilege to take the mystery out of money and help entrepreneurs reach their goal through better understanding of their financial results and increasing their financial acumen. I'm delighted we have a very special guest. Welcome to the show, Despina Zanganas. Welcome, Despina.
Thanks, Tracey. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we are very excited to have you. You've got a really great expertise we want you to share with our viewers today. And so to give you a little bit of background on Despina, she's a community and connection creator. So it sounds very mysterious, but I'm going to give you a little bit of info about her. She's the founder and principal of Connect and Bloom, a coaching consultancy that helps women build confidence and create a personalized strategy with the goal of getting ahead in their career, gaining more business, or raising their profile through networking. She's had a lot of interesting experiences over the years. So I'm going to toss it over to you, Despina, to share a little bit more about your background and what a day looks like for you, because I know you do so many things.
I do. I've got so many things on the go. So ironically, my background is actually in graphic design, and I would say that I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've built two digital marketing agencies, one of them 108 Idea Space, which is still around, and I'm still doing a lot of consulting work for them. But, probably in about 2012 or something like that, I realized I kind of wanted to change direction. I think this happens to a lot of people when they reach a certain age. They're like, what else can I do with my life? So I was, trying to figure all that out. And in 2013, I actually read the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. And I was so inspired by that book that I went on LinkedIn and I tried to see if there was any kind of groups or anything like that. And there wasn't, although there was a post by a woman by the name of Christina. And she said, in this post, like, are there any groups? Because I'd love to start one. So I reached out to her and I said, why don't you have it at my office? And so 30 random women showed up because of this LinkedIn post at my office. And so that was crazy. And I realized that there was something, wonderful about this. And so with Christina and another woman by the name of Sarah, we basically founded this organization. And now it's grown to about 8,000 women across Canada. We've got chapters in Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary, and that's crazy exciting. But while I was doing that, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career. So soon after that, because of Lean In, I realized that I was really passionate about empowering women. So I left the organization. I left 108 Idea Space. I sold my shares. And I was still trying to figure out what I was really into. So I remembered that, when I was 16 years old, I flipped a house with my mother in real estate. And I was like, I remember loving doing that. So I decided to get into real estate. But I wanted to marry my passions. So my passion for real estate and my passion for empowering women. So my whole real estate business is about empowering women. But also the other passion I realized was connecting people. And that's something that I learned through Lean In. We couldn't get to 8,000 women across Canada if it wasn't for that networking and the whole story about Lean In and how it was founded was just a networking story through Lean In. So, so that's how everything happened. So now I've started networking consultancy where I teach people. It's very, very much at the early stages, but teaching people how to network properly. And on top of that, I've got a podcast called Connect and Bloom by the same name.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. And so the organization, you kind of referred to it a little bit, but Lean In Canada is the organization that you founded. And so tremendous to have that reach across Canada. Yeah. And so I certainly know that you know a lot about networking and connecting the right way and how people can do it the wrong way. And we know as business owners, it is so critical that we have strong networks to be able to grow our business and to be able to ensure we have steady cash flow coming in, steady revenue. And there's so many things we can get into, which we will today, in terms of how we do it, how we don't do it. But it is really critical as business owners. So I know everybody has ideas about networking, and they may think that they know how to do it. Would love to hear from you exactly what it means to you, and why do you think it's important for business owners?
Sure. So I think there's a misconception out there that networking is actually going into a room and doing that sleazy like handshake and, hand out your business cards and, just having phony conversations. And, going to events is part of it for sure. But networking is actually every single human interaction that you have. So, when you like somebody's post on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and when you engage with them, that's part of networking. When you go to a coffee shop and talk to a barista, that's part of networking. When you go to the dog park and talk to the other people there, that's networking. And I think networking really needs to be reframed, and people need to kind of think about it that way, because I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people and I tell them what I do when it comes to networking, and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm horrible at it." And I'm like, "Yeah, but like I always see you online commenting on people's posts." And I think that, like I said, I think it really needs kind of like a rethink about what it actually is. And you asked me, why do I think it's important? Mm-hmm. So several years ago, I think it was in 2012, there was a Catalyst study specifically for women. And they said in this study, of all the things that get you ahead in the world, it's not like taking extra courses. It's not, coming in early, staying late, doing that extra work. It's actually tooting your own horn and networking. Those were the only two things that they found that would get women ahead in their career. So, and to me, tooting your own horn and networking is very much the same thing, because, when you're going into an office, you want to tell people what you're doing. And part of that is networking when you're telling people. So I think it's really important. And I think networking is also important because it gives you the opportunity to develop relationships. Yeah. And when you develop those relationships, you develop trust, and people want to work with people that they actually trust. So because of that, it actually gives you access to different opportunities that you wouldn't have known about, and you become top of mind for people. So, for me personally, I've gotten so much business just through like Lean In, for example. These are the people that I've known. I've done a ton of business, real estate business, because of that specific network. And, I've gotten speakers and volunteers, and not everything's paid part. Some of it is, and some of it is just comes in different ways, right? So that's why I think it's so critical.
Absolutely. And I know lots of my success I can certainly credit to networking and the relationships I've developed and maintained, because it's not just that first time you meet somebody. You've got to be genuinely interested and carry on that relationship with them, which is great. And so before we get into best practices, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's actually been happening with networking. Certainly the pandemic has changed what we consider kind of business as usual. So I love how you framed it, that every single interaction that we have is networking. What are you seeing and hearing about how people have been going about networking over the last 18 months or so?
Yeah, so I would say that in the beginning, I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the beginning, people kind of isolated. They didn't want to talk to anybody the first couple months. But I think then people started getting frustrated, and they're like, and not everybody, but I know that me personally, I get energy from talking to people. So I really went out there and tried to find different networking events. So one of them, I don't know if you know CAWE, the Canadian Association of Women Executives and Entrepreneurs. They have, I think it's a monthly breakfast meeting with all their members. And another one is Elevate. So there's online networking there. And what I found really cool with these organizations, and specifically Elevate, because it's an international organization, there were people joining from all over the world. So I actually connected with somebody from Costa Rica, and which was crazy. And she actually helped me to build my podcast and, tips and tricks and stuff like that. So, we met during the event. And then after that, we took it offline and we had a little video chat, and it was so cool because he was in Costa Rica. And then I met, women from all over the US, and it was great. And I think that people are really reaching out a lot more on LinkedIn. That's what I found, just to connect. And so I've had a lot of Zoom meetings, people just reaching out and saying, hey, it's been so long. I just want to see what you're up to and see if I can help you in any way. And I don't know if you noticed this, but at the end of July, I got so many meeting requests, like in person, to go to like a cafe or lunch or something like that. I was like overwhelmed. So my expenses went through the roof in August because I had so many in-person meetings. It was so funny. So you could tell that people were just craving that interaction. So yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. And I joined BNI just before the pandemic hit. And so that was working well during the pandemic. We also had international people come by because it's an international organization, because we could, now that meetings were virtual, and really have just found the same thing. So I think I think that we're going to keep up a lot of those good things that happened during the pandemic, and then add in, as you say, all of those in-person things we can do. But I think it's really allowed us to expand our network outside of our geography, which is great. And I mean, for you to find someone to help you with your podcast from Costa Rica, that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, for sure. And another great thing I've noticed is that we were talking about it earlier, like the travel time, so you're able to connect with a lot more people because you didn't actually have to go drive somewhere and pay for the cost of the event and all that kind of stuff. It was just, pandemic was horrible, but there's some benefits too.
Definitely some silver linings, that's for sure. And so if we're thinking about networking as every single interaction that we have with people, and we're going to focus on the ones that we do a little bit more intentionally, where we're trying to create those connections, what success tips can you share for those who are catching the interview, so that if people are feeling like you gave the example, I'm not good at it, if people are feeling that way, or they're not sure even how to start, because we're going to have people from different experience levels watching, what tips can you share to help us be successful?
Sure. So I would say figure out your why. So why do you want to network? Is it because you want to build your career? Is it because you want to grow your business? Is it because you want to get a promotion or something like that? And look at those people that you want to interact with and really learn about them, right? Like, what do they do? What do they read? Where do they go hang out? All that kind of stuff, I think, is really important. I would also say you really need to have a top-notch LinkedIn profile. And if you don't have one, if you don't know how to create a top-notch LinkedIn profile, there's plenty of people out there who can help you write it and who can kind of change the messaging so you authentically appear successful. You know what I mean? Some people are really concerned about boasting on LinkedIn, and sometimes it's easier if you get somebody else to write it for you. Yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, that I didn't realize that, but yeah, that actually sounds really good, right? Because the best networkers are going to Google you beforehand. So you want to make sure that every time that they Google you, that you look super professional, that they've got all that information. You don't want to have LinkedIn like a resume, right? You want to have it so there's your personality behind it, and potentially links to interviews you've done or articles and stuff like that. It's a much more rich experience. And then I would say find some groups that work for you. Right. So this is obviously in person, although you could find some online events too, but it's much more easier in person once everything starts up. Find a group that works for you and go there often and introduce yourself to the organizers. And I'm thinking specifically like Lean In, for example. There were some people that I've met and they would come every single week. They made sure that they introduced themselves to me. And because the organizers tend to be pretty well connected because they've had to hire the speakers and they know all the people or many of the people that come to the events. So if you're looking to grow your career, I think it's really important to make yourself known and be consistent at that event. But it's got to be something that speaks to you. That being said, I also think you need to go to events that you don't necessarily feel, I don't want to say comfortable, but with diverse people. So for example, there's like How She Hustles, which is, mostly women of color and stuff like that, just to expand your network. Because I think a lot of times you stick with your comfort zone. And I think that's not necessarily a good thing. And I think it's also important to be generous. So like when you're meeting somebody initially, don't think about what they can do for you. Only think about what you can do for them. So there's this actually, I don't know if you've heard of Dory Clark. Her book just came out. I think it was today, actually. And one of the things she says in her book is, don't ask for anything for a year, which I don't know if I would do that, but she talks about just building the relationship and just trying to see what you can do for other people. So for example, is it like introducing them to right people, sending them the right article, and helping them grow? Because when you're kind of top of mind with these people, they want to help you. So it's not that you're doing it because you want something, but there's just something about helping somebody else that's just great.
Yeah, I love that. And that's how I've operated my life. Like, how can I help someone? And it comes back in one way, shape, or form. It may not be that person, but it might be somebody that they've told about me and now is going to come into my life and help me in some way. And I certainly wouldn't have achieved what I have without lots of networking and building those relationships. I want to recap those tips to make sure everybody's got them super clear because they're really important. The why are you doing this networking? So that's going to help determine where you're going to do that. Number 2, learn about the people you're actually going to spend time with and have a legitimate, genuine interest. Make sure you've got that top-notch LinkedIn profile. I could not agree more. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. And back on September 7th, we had Sabita Singh, who helps clients with their LinkedIn profiles. And she shared a lot of tips on the Young Money podcast. And we also had Scott Aaron on Biz Money Talks. So you can catch that on YouTube to hear his tips as well, especially when it comes to using it for business. So there's no excuse. There's tons of free resources over there. It's for you to bring up your profile, find the groups that are right for you, expand your horizons. And I think what I heard you say, Despina, was really kind of move a little bit outside your comfort zone so that you're always bringing new people into your network. And number 6, that's a generosity of spirit, which I love. And I don't think you can ever go wrong when you're trying to help others. So now to the flip side, you've probably, especially as one of the founders of Lean in Canada and as an organizer of many events, you've probably seen people make some missteps when it comes to networking, whether how they approached you or how they were approaching other people. And so what can you share in terms of missteps that you'd like everybody who's checking this out to avoid?
Sure. And I have to say, I have made all of these mistakes too. So it's okay to do this. So one of the things, I didn't actually realize that it was a misstep until somebody on my podcast pointed it out. So I'm sure you've had this, Tracey, where somebody sends you an email and they say, by way of this email, I'm introducing you to this person. I don't know why you should connect, but you should connect, kind of thing, right? And what you really need to do is ask permission from both sides. And you've done this to me, Tracey. You've actually asked somebody permission before you introduced me. And I thought that was amazing because you don't know what's going on in their life at that moment, right? And it's not that they don't necessarily want to help, but there could be something, they might be really busy with work or something going on with their family. And by not responding, it affects their brand, right? And that person also wants to make sure that they are the right person for who you're going to introduce them to, right? So I would say that is the most critical thing. Yeah, the person who told me was Chanel McFarlane on my podcast. And when she said that, I was like, oh my goodness, I've done that so many times and I'm not going to do that again because it just drives me crazy when people do that. I mean, sometimes, you know what I mean?
It depends on how well you know them, because
That's true.
if I don't know somebody very well, I'm definitely going to check. But if I know they're generally okay with it, I'm going to go ahead.
That's a great point.
But I'm using my judgment. I'm not just blanket doing it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And if, like for me, for example, if somebody is looking for real estate and they know somebody wants to buy something right away, I'm like, yeah, just send me the email. It's okay. But if it's for like mentorship or something like that, I think it's always important to ask beforehand.
For sure.
Another thing is, as connectors, we get a bit of a high when we see two people connecting and something coming out of it, So I would say always update that person that connected you, because it feels so good. Like sometimes I've seen on LinkedIn, somebody posted like, oh, me and this person are doing something. And then I'll email them and I'm like, is that because of that connection I did? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. So if you want to get more of those connections, make sure you keep those people top of mind. Also, it's following up with the people. So if you said you're going to follow up, definitely follow up. A big one that I hear on my podcast, pretty much every single guest, is they go to an event and the person just talks about themselves. They don't actually inquire about the other person. I was talking to a friend the other day and she said the same thing. She went to an event. This was before COVID. And the person was telling her all about this HR business that she was building, and she was super excited. And she said, she never asked a question about me, what I was doing. So it was all about promoting herself. And it wasn't that reciprocity that's so important when it comes to networking. I would also say sometimes you go to an event and you try to meet too many people. Right. So you actually don't forge those really deep connections. Sometimes it's better to have just like 1, 2, or 3 deep connections that you can follow up with and something like that, as opposed to handing out your business card to everybody. Like most people don't. There's no value out of that.
Absolutely. So love those. So asking the permission to introduce or connect. So don't just send those out unless you know the person's going to be okay with it. Showing that gratitude. So updating that person and just taking the time to do that, because they've taken their time to connect you and they're probably going to do it more for you. That failure to follow up, if that's what you've committed to, and that can really damage your brand, whether you're in a career or you're running your business. Not asking about the other person, as you mentioned, and then just trying to meet too many people. So that is contained a little bit with the virtual way. But now as we go back to in person, that's going to start up again. And we're going to see those people running around the room trying to meet up with everybody. So love all of those that you shared. And I think that some of the keys from both the success tips and the missteps is really around showing appreciation, gratitude, and the reciprocity. And that it's really coming from a place of you wanting to help others, and then good things will really happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so before I let you go, are there any final tips you'd love to leave the business owners with? It might be something that you've already said that you want to make sure they really take in, or it might be something brand new that you want to leave them with.
I say it's something brand new. So one of the things is, don't discount anybody that you meet at an event. I actually have a bit of a story about this. This is my favorite networking story, and I love to share it. So this was when I was super nervous. A lot of people don't know that I was really terrified of networking until I got a business coach, and she kind of showed me the way. And one of the things that we did during this coaching session is she picked out an event for me, and she helped me with like what I should do, what I should say, where I should stand. And at this particular event, I met this woman who was actually a competitor, and she lived in a different city. So I thought there was no way that I could ever get anything out of this woman, but I actually liked her. So we hung out and we talked, and it was great. And we added each other on LinkedIn and Twitter and all that stuff. Anyways, go forward, a year and a half later, this is when I started Lean In, and I saw that she had registered for one of our events. So I was like, oh my goodness. So I reached out and I said, hey, I saw that you registered and I'm actually one of the founders. And she's like, yeah, I just got recruited. And so I'm like, great. So she didn't make it to the event, but we went out for dinner and, we did connect. And it's funny, she's one of those people that, I don't see her for a year, but we just pick up, where we left off. So that was it. And then several months later, out of the blue, she calls me up and she says, Despina, one of my clients wants to donate some money to a women's organization. And she's like, I immediately thought of you. And she's like, it's $50,000 and it's Procter and Gamble. And that struck me so much because at the time when I met her, I hadn't founded Lean In Canada. I was, I was the founder of 108 Idea Space. And so I couldn't really see the connection. But years later, something came together. And so don't ever discount people. And, I can't tell you how many times that I've met people that were maybe shy and didn't have a big network, but there was somebody in their network that, was maybe successful, or maybe they introduced me to this person who introduced me to this person who introduced me to this person. I mean, I have tons of stories like that where it's like, it's a 7-year process and something great came out of that. And had I walked away from that person, I never would have gotten that connection or whatever. So I think that is so important. And it's also be generous. So I've been talking about how it benefited me, but it just feels good when you can help people connect. I talked about that before, when you introduce different people and see something coming out of it. So don't think of networking as, getting something, reframe it and think of it as how to be generous.
Love that. And it's not about keeping a scorecard. And I'm sure that if you had not been genuine in your relationship with that woman, that she would not have thought of you fondly those years later and certainly made that connection. And it's so important to always remember, you don't know who knows who. Yeah. And I've had so many interesting things happen over the years that it's been, well, this person told me about that person and how things have come together. Even we were talking before we pressed record, and I'm a professor at Centennial College. That came to be because of somebody that I knew, and they helped me get a contact there. And that's how it went. I also used to teach at McMaster, and I got my first initial contact from a neighbor who introduced me to someone they knew. And it just, things happen. So you want to be genuine in spirit and generous, just like Despina has advised us. So, and good things will come. They may not be in the moment, and you're not going to keep tally and keep score, but over the long run, everything kind of seems to work out for sure when you're doing that. So before I let you go, what are you working on now, and where can those who've loved listening to you today learn more about you and your services?
Sure. So when it comes to real estate, I'm actually holding, because like I said, I'm passionate about empowering women through real estate. I'm having an event on September 29th, teaching women everything you need to know about buying your first home. I'm really excited about that. Gearing up for the busy the real estate season. Yes. September is when things start getting really crazy. I've got some amazing guests coming on my Connect and Bloom podcast, so stay tuned for that. And if you're interested in coaching services for networking, just reach out to me. On any of my social media, mostly LinkedIn, that's probably the best place. And all my social handles are at I am Despina.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Despina, for joining us today. I love the reframe on networking, the do's and don'ts, and certainly how we can do that from a wonderfully generous place. I know that those who are catching the interview live or will catch it on the replay will certainly be of benefit for putting those things into practice. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
You are welcome. And so before I let you go, everybody, we do have a live free financial training coming up for business owners. We're going to be kicking that off October 11th. So taking your role to the next level as the CEO of your business, whether that's of you or you're leading a team, understanding the difference between profit and cash flow, navigating those stakeholder money conversations, pricing profitably, and so much more. So if you head over to bizpiece.com, you can get registered. And if you've loved the conversation we've had today and would love to keep it going, we do have a weekly meetup at bizmoneyclub.com. You can get registered. We hold it Wednesday evenings, and it's a drop-in. You join if you can, and if you can't make it that week, we look forward to seeing you another day. So until next time, take good care and stay financially fit.